Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Select Board meeting for Tuesday, April 29, 2025. Before we get to our first scheduled agenda item, I invite everyone to stand with us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I see the time is 7 o'clock, and we have a scheduled item, Verizon New England cable television license renewal process. I'm going to read a public announcement on it, and then we'll get into the thing. So good evening. Welcome to the town of Tewksbury's Tewksbury public hearing on Veterans and Verizon cable license renewal. Notice of this hearing was in the local newspaper 2 successive weeks. Copies of this legal advertisement are being entered into the record as ascertainment hearing exhibits. By way of brief background of the public, Verizon's cable television license expires on May 29, 2026. Federal and state law require the holdings of public ascertainment proceedings, including this hearing, to identify public and town cable-related needs. The process of ascertainment of the community cable needs will remain open after the close of this hearing, so there will be further opportunity for comments to be submitted to the town. In these proceedings, we are open to accepting comments about all cable-related matters of interest to the public, including but not limited to customer service, including town needs regarding the local studio, local programming, channels for public use, educational and government access. We welcome public comment on any cable matter. Members of the Select Board may also have questions or comments. We are ready to accept comments from the public, from any interested people. So anyone who would like to give comment, please come up to the microphone and state your name. I've seen no one from the audience coming forward. I will now move over to listen to our guest who's going to be giving us an update on the Verizon contract. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. The floor is yours.
This is Bill August. I was legal counsel to Tewksbury in the 2 prior license renewals. The most recent Comcast renewal and the Verizon license renewal approximately 4 years ago. The Comcast license was a 10-year license, and that's just getting underway. And the Verizon only does up to 5-year licenses. For the benefit of the purpose of the initial hearing is legally very simple. The cable licensing law and the Federal Cable Act provides that the municipality as the licensing authority, the selectmen being the licensing authority, must allow the public an opportunity to be heard, not just at an initial hearing, but through having an ascertainment of needs record open, where the public and interested persons can provide comments. So tonight the selectmen's job is really to listen and open the record for ongoing input. In the prior renewal, and let me say for the benefit of the public and the Select Board, probably the thing the public cares about the most is price and cost and rate increases, but that was deregulated by Congress, so there is no legal authority to either regulate rates through rate setting, and there's no legal authority to regulate rates contractually through even contractual and mutually agreed upon rate stabilization. So unfortunately, we cannot touch the rates. The main pillar of the cable law, federal cable law, they kind of call it the grand bargain, where Congress took away the rate regulation, and they also took away regulation of program lineup. We can't get involved in picking and choosing channels and programming. And it's provided that in exchange for that, the cities and towns can require an annual franchise fee, which under Massachusetts law must be used for cable-related local channels, local studios, local facilities. So most of the time and energy goes into negotiating for continuity and some growth in the local channels, your local programming, which are quite valuable to a community. These days, without some of the local channels, you would not have any coverage, obviously, of municipal meetings, school committee meetings, the whole slew of municipal coverage, school events. So that has sort of grown over the decades and through the different licenses into a valuable part of the fabric of a community, is to have some local channels where events about and information pertaining to Tewksbury can be covered and recorded and archived. So that's where most of the action is. And in the past, my life has been made very easy because you have a very talented and technically expert local studio coordinator, Brian Dorrington, and working with the town administrators in the past and ongoing now with Administrator John Curran. Brian is pulling together detailed, itemized operating and capital budgets to justify to Verizon in this renewal, as he recently did with Comcast in their recent renewal, cost justification for continuing the quarterly payments that go to the operating budget of telemedia, of the local studio and channels. And there are two buckets of money that are on the table. It's the annual franchise fee for operating budget, and it's a capital budget also for, the longer term equipment and facilities assets. So this is phase one, ascertainment of needs, doing our homework to find out what's needed and to work with the interested persons to develop credible, accurate, and reasonable budgets to justify some return from Verizon to the local community. This is just the prelude to the negotiations. The hearing is not an end in itself. Nothing has to be decided or acted upon at initial hearing. We're just opening the record for needs information. And then based on that, we will get into negotiations. And the Verizon renewal team has been very fair-minded in Massachusetts communities. They look at the cost justifications and budgets with an open mind. Of course, they don't agree to everything. It's a negotiations process, but they do meet us halfway and have been reasonable. So I'm very confident based on past experience. I represent about 10 cities and towns a year doing this. It's about 90% of my work is municipal law and primarily in this cable world, which I've been doing for decades. And Verizon is participates and is responsive. They do not send counsel to the initial meeting, but they're always there and accessible and can be a resource to the community if they provide the funding for local facilities. So that's my overview. And I look forward to getting to the next phase, which is the actual negotiations and generation of a draft document. And I think we can have a very cost-effective process because we did a Verizon renewal 5 years ago, maybe a little more than 4 years ago. And it's a good license document. And we will try to the maximum extent possible to recycle that document so we don't have to reinvent the wheel and spend time and money on it, and just try to cut to the chase and renew the thing. So that's where I'm coming from.
Thank you. Mr. Doring?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Bill. I mean, he gave a great summary. There's not much more I could say. I usually just like to tell people that this is about the larger cable needs in town. For us, this is everything. We're funded through franchise fees. We don't take any taxpayer dollars. On your bill, you'll see whoever subscribes to Comcast and Verizon, you will see a franchise fee on there, and that's how we're funded. So this negotiation process, like Bill said, we're in our very early stages, but for us, this is everything. This is sustainable, and this is not on the taxpayer at all, and I just always like to make sure people know that. And just a few of the highlights of things we do bring to the community. I just have some numbers here. Last year in 2024, we have a full-time staff of 2 people and 1 freelancer. We filmed 91 sporting events, 83 municipal meetings, 32 community events, 15 public service announcements, a series with the Tewksbury Police Department of 11 short form videos. The total shoots come out to 232, and we only have 250 working days in Massachusetts. So we're almost doing 1 video a day, and that doesn't even take into account editing time, exporting time, programming these. So we're very active, and a lot of that is because we've had a lot of help and support from Comcast, Verizon, the board, and every administration that's been here, John and Richard. And I do just like to say that even though we are able to produce that much, we still have room for growth, and we still need growth. I've even had a discussion recently about potentially getting our own space. A lot of cable access stations do have their own space, their own studio, that they can centralize all of their operations. Right now, we don't have that. It's been working for us. We're mobile, but people in the community have been talking about it. So it's one of those things where we have to have enough money to be able to take those needs, consider it, and not necessarily act on it, but make sure that we're offering the community options. So that's really all I wanted to say. Like Bill said, it's the very beginning of the process, but this will be my 3rd time working with Bill for a contract, so I'm very confident that this will go well. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Cameron, would you like to add anything before we open up to the board?
No, just that I want to thank Brian and Bill for the work they're doing, and having done many of these contracts throughout the years, I do think there are some things that we have to pay attention to. One is that the number of subscribers is trending downward, so that impacts revenue. So it's important for us to keep that in mind as we try to negotiate what the revenue stream is for the future. And keeping in mind also that, as Brian sort of alluded to, in the future, if we want to grow to be able to provide services to the community like edit suites and things like that, we'd have to expand our space and things. So those are things we're considering when we're sitting down at the contract table. High definition channels is another thing that I'm particularly interested in. I think that the community should have at least one. I know that I think the language is there, just getting that in place. So those are things we'll be looking at. Obviously, this is an ascertainment process, an opportunity for people to to voice what they think the needs are and desires are for the community. So people who have interest in cable access and PEG should feel free to send information to the town, send it to my office, and we'll make sure we incorporate that into our negotiating process.
Thank you. All right, at this time, I'll open it up to the board. I'll start with you, Mr. Holland.
Yeah, thank you, Brian, for your comments. I do appreciate what you and your colleagues do. My question is, what is the time frame for the negotiations so the residents know how long they have to send their comments in, since the public hearing is not being closed?
Yes, so I believe the contract will take into effect May 2026, so we're a long way out. Bill, do you know how long the time period for comment is?
April 22nd.
Oh, April 22nd, okay, so.
Of 2026? 2026.
I believe so, yeah, I believe so.
That's all the questions, I have, Mr. Chairman.
Right, Comcast, I mean, the Verizon expires May 29th, I have May 29th, 26.
Okay.
Yeah, May 26.
Yeah.
We can accept comments for the next, I would say, 10 months if we remain in what the Cable Act calls the informal renewal process. Cable Act has two procedural frameworks, informal renewal and formal. 98% of the renewals are through the informal process, where the parties just keep negotiating and negotiating and banging it out until right up to expiration. But you need about a month or two before the May 26 expiration to, you have to close it up kind of a month or two before the expiration, because you have to have a final document that you're refining and closing up the process with. So I would say approximately the end of March of 26, so about 10, 11 months. If we just go through that negotiate informal process, the Cable Act allows that. So subject to having a public hearing before any final action or approval that must occur at another select board here. There's also a formal process, which is more costly and somewhat counterproductive, where the town can issue a formal request for proposals to the incumbent to provide a formal proposal in response to the RFP, instead of just doing it informally. That brings in about 5 times more lawyers from Verizon when you do the formal process. And so it's harder to get through the tweaks and pro-municipal language that they allow in an informal process. But that's relevant to the question, because in the formal process, you must close the ascertainment record as of when you issue the RFP. And the RFP must be issued if we go with the formal process, which we don't rule out. We keep that, we reserve our rights to do that. But if you do the formal process, you must issue the RFP 4 months before expiration. And you close ascertainment. So if we did the formal process, it would be like around the end of January instead of the end of March. It'd be a little less time. So we have a good solid period. If there's outreach and we make the public aware, they can comment at any time. And that's what it's all about, is from the municipal lawyer's perspective, is being transparent. We're willing to, we share all our documents and drafts so that the public always feels it can have input and they're confident in the process.
I'm all set.
Yep. Mr. Mackey?
Thank you. Bill, great to see you again. Thanks for the effort.
Good seeing you all.
My first question is the same question I brought up last time for the Comcast renewal, which is, as you mentioned, or Mr. Karn mentioned, people are continuing to cut the proverbial cord and get off of cable, but they are continuing to get their internet access through these companies, which we are not compensated on. Have you heard anything? Is there anything in the pipe that may let us start to get some sort of funding or fees from that?
Well, you're really raising like one of the most important questions, if not the most important, because it's crazy. You have the same kind of wire going down your public ways and providing, you know, to the human eye, it's the same, just on some microscopic technical level under the legislation. If it's an internet protocol signal, there's no enabling legislation to impose a franchise fee for use of the public way. So you have a cable, if it's cable system cable, it's subject to the franchise fee. If it's an internet streaming, there have been bills pending at the Massachusetts legislature every year, and there's been lobbying by municipal groups, but they can't get it into the end zone. And under the Home Rule Amendment, there can be no revenue raising taxation without state enabling legislation. So we need state enabling legislation to do that. And people have been knocking their heads against the wall for that forever. And it would be nice if Congress were to just authorize it federally the way they did for cable companies. But I'm not holding my breath on that, because actually the currents are going in the other direction. They're more into looking for what they think are helpful deregulation to reduce the burdens on the poor cable companies. So that's really the atmosphere right now, is people are not hopeful for that. But it's a great question.
Awesome. I appreciate that, Bill. Thank you. Yeah, that's been my recurring question since my first one of these hearings, and unfortunately, I don't think it's going to change anytime soon, but I'm going to remain hopeful. That being said,
you're in good company. You're in good company.
Thank you. That being said, Brian, again, what the work you and your team do is outstanding. You're a great value add to the community. We have this stack of letters from residents and committees and groups in town kind of outlining that. You mentioned the number of recordings and videos your team shoots and processes. And you're also one of those rare unicorns that isn't funded operationally by taxpayer dollars. As I was just mentioning to Bill, I want to continue to see that grow, and I want to make sure you are still funded, but my concern is making sure we can do that with those subscribers continuing to decline. So I know we've had a couple discussions, you and I, about this and other potential revenue streams, and that's somewhere I'm going to continue to lean in, and hopefully we can find some additional revenue sources for you so we can keep you off of the tax funding. So great work. I appreciate it. Thank you. Bill, you got a great deal for us last time with Comcast. Hopefully you can beat that bar this time, and looking forward to seeing how this progresses. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, James.
Mr. Russo?
Thank you. Thank you, Bill, for your presentation. Brian, appreciate you being here. Again, I'll kind of relay the same sentiment as my colleague, Mr. Mackey, about just the value add that you guys bring to residents in the community, people's living rooms, et cetera. And Mr. Curran, you actually kind of hinted at kind of where my head was going in terms of using this as an opportunity for potential technology upgrades or, sort of extended fiber optic as a chance to kind of enhance some of that, especially where, we are seeing declining subscribers. Maybe there's a value add to potentially take advantage of enhancing some of that technology. So, it sounds like you're on it, so I appreciate, kind of where you're coming from. So if we could just kind of use that as a part of the negotiations, hopefully, again, that will continue to
that's-
keep that trend.
That's what the PEG grant is really about, is using that money for those types of capital investments.
Okay,
And whereas the franchise fee generally sustains the
Sustain
operating
it.
costs.
okay, all right.
But, that's why we try to do so well
Yep.
with the grant piece, because that enables you to do other things. And sometimes, as part of the bargaining process, you can get those things. So we'll work on that.
Yep. All right, excellent, thank you.
Mr. Ryder?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Brian, you and your staff, I'll echo my colleagues, phenomenal job. The ability to, I'll just speak on the sports level, being able to allow grandparents that are in warmer climates in the wintertime, able to watch their grandkids is an amazing thing. And also allowing these meetings to be broadcast and get our messages out to the public is a great job, and you guys do a top-notch job at that. So thank you guys, your staff, and Bill, thank you again. And you set the bar high with the Comcast, so we want to see higher than that. So looking forward to what we get out of this. And I am 100% supporter of a studio at some point. I think that will be a great asset to the community and expanding your programming.
I agree.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Well, you've heard from all my colleagues. I'm going to echo much of the same. You've done a wonderful job with what you have, and we've asked you to do more and more with less many times. And you've always come forward and done a wonderful job. What you've done with the police videos, awesome. And when you do something that's great, you get more work. So I can see that other departments or other, businesses around the community are promoting economic development, promoting why Tewksbury, why not, use our services, why not move here, all the different things that we can do. We've made a great investment in our community with the schools and the police and fire and all the other types of improvements we've made. And so we have a lot of people that want to move up here. Letting new residents know what's going on. A couple of years ago, we'd be sitting here and we'd have a lot of residents telling us that they didn't know what was going on. I still hear that a little bit, but not as much. It's definitely cut down because of your work of making sure that the finance committee meetings are being broadcast, all the planning board, select board members, school committee members, zoning, all the other meetings that take place. You're on top of that. The meetings, the equipment that has been purchased, it makes it so much better that people can actually hear what people are talking about and see the videos. Having this technology of having somebody else in the room with us that doesn't have to be here and having the residents be able to hear that is invaluable. So the more we can get out to the community, the better our community is. I always promote that we should, we got to be transparent in this town, and everyone should be. And so I love these type of, growing, finding another way of you growing with your department and getting more people to help you, and filming all the games, all the different events that we do in town. I think it brings a great enjoyment to the community, and it has other people looking to move to this community as well. So I thank you for your work.
Well, thank you for your support. And yeah, just keep the work coming to us. We love having cameras in our hands.
You asked for it.
All right.
All right. With that, we're going to continue the public hearing. Do I have to select a time or date, or do we need a motion to keep open the public hearing?
I think we need a motion. We did
But
that.
I'm just trying to think of a time of, like, if we continue the public hearing to what time? Should we, would it be?
You could do it that's up to you totally. Well, I just want to add one footnote. When I hear such strong support for local studios, one of the things we realized over the years with everyone is so, technology crazy. The unique thing about the cable channels is they actually have a human being who's committed to the community. And sometimes it's we forget. It's the human beings that are behind the technology. It's not just the technology. that makes it so unique and different. You actually have a local human being making the technology reflect your community, Tewksbury. So that there is still something very cutting edge about cable, that you could look at all these other fancy technologies, but they don't have people who are committed to your town, and that's different.
Yep. Mr. Mackey?
So I would pose a motion for discussion. In the interest of keeping our options open, should we need a formal RFP, I would make a motion that we leave this open until our last meeting in December, whatever that date may be, and then we can reassess. That gives them time. We can continue to leave it open after that, but that lets us close it in time if we need to follow the formal RFP process.
Right. Usually, if they match the Comcast franchise fee percentage, we got Comcast to increase its percentage. They're going to be above if we get Verizon up to the Comcast level on both the operating funds and the capital funding, which is calculated on a per subscriber basis, and on the HD that Administrator Karan mentioned, then we'll know we have a good package that's equivalent to the Comcast package, and that's when we will be able to make an informed judgment about whether to stay with the informal or go to the formal.
Hey, remember, we want to beat Comcast, right? We want to get a better deal this time, Bill.
Right. Well, we usually do on the capital, and on the annual, they do agree to match Comcast. You can't get them to give a higher percentage than their competitor, although it's a long story how we got Comcast. But Verizon will usually, historically, do about 10% more than Comcast on the capital on a per subscriber basis. So that's what we're going to try for.
Perfect. Thank you, Bill.
I'll make a second to that motion.
Okay. So I
That
have,
would put us to, if you just want to use a date in December, I don't have that.
I would guess, based on how we've done it historically, I'd say December 2nd. So that'll be our first meeting in December. We usually only do one.
Okay.
So.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Bill.
Great seeing you all. Take care. Thank you.
Seeing you.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, we have a 705 liquor license, alteration of premises, Al Fresco Restaurante and Market Al Fresco, 1768 Main Street. Do we have someone on this matter? Just step up to the microphone, just give your name and address for the record so our recording secretary can keep it.
Certainly.
Thank you.
My name is Mark Anglin. This is my son Mark as well, from Al Fresco Restaurant, 1768 Main Street.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to turn the floor over to you, and you can discuss what you're looking to do.
Absolutely. So we're here to propose renovations for the restaurant so our patrons can access the sweet shop, which is in the middle, through the inside, and versus going out the one door, going over, and going into another door. From the market right over and then into the restaurant as well. In doing so, the sweet shop right now will be licensed under the restaurant. So we're going to give it to the market and put it under their liquor license.
Okay.
So it's about 680 square feet altogether. So two walkways, one from the market into the sweet shop, and then one from the sweet shop into the restaurant. And then we're also just extending, moving one wall 3 feet, just so it allows enough room for customers.
Right. Thank you. All right, I'm going to open it up to the board. Let's start with you, Mr. Russo.
Thank you for being here. I guess just, just kind of reviewing the part of the packet earlier today. As far as timeline for completion of this, what sort of plans do you have or timeline do you have?
Well, the majority of the work will be done the 4th of July week. The restaurant's closed.
Okay.
But by the 4th, by July, we'll be finished up.
And will there be any sort of disruption to the business? I mean, or are you just planning on doing it all during that, when you're shut down?
Majority of it will be done during that, so we'll work on, sectioning off part of the market, and then we'll work on section off part of the sweet shop, and then we'll work on section off a little part of the restaurant, not much.
And then will your, with the adjustment of the wall and whatnot, will the occupancy change?
No, there's no seating in the sweet shop area. So all that's doing is allowing, like, we would put like an extra dessert cooler there. It's currently, now there's no room for one, so to allow for a cooler.
That's all the questions I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Ryder?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Russo asked my question on timeline. So ultimately, at the end of the day, you're just looking to be able to access from in the property, not having to go out one door, in another door, back and forth.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. People have a carriage, so it's tough for them to go into out that door, which is automatic, that's not a problem. But going into another door that's not automatic, it's...
Sure. Okay. No, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. All set.
All right, Mr. Mackey?
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for being here. Personally, I love this idea because both scenarios you just mentioned apply to me, because every time I go to the shop, I got to hit the sweet shop. Every time I go to the restaurant, I got to hit the sweet shop. So I personally don't do gluten, and you guys are great about that.
Oh, good.
You've got a
Very
great
good.
selection in the bakery, so that's why I always have to make that stop. Opening this up for traversal between, again, it's a route I walk frequently. So
Very good.
I am very much in favor of that. The timeline question was the only one I had, and I am good. Thank you, and good luck.
Very good, thank you.
Mr. Holland?
Yes, I just have a couple of questions, and thank you for the complete applications for both licenses. My question is, people can't take alcohol from the restaurant and walk into the sweet shop or the market, correct? Is there some type of signage there that says they...
There will be if we require one, but they're not, so they would stop at the door.
So there's going to be doors in between?
Yes, so the market into the sweet shop would just be a walkway. But there will be a barn door from the restaurant. But once it's open, it's open. It doesn't open and close.
Okay.
But so when the restaurant closes, we close it, lock it up. Like, because the market is open 7 days a week. The restaurant's only open 6.
My concern was just somebody traveling from the restaurant into the market with a drink in their hand, into the
So
sweet
we
shop.
could put up a sign, for sure.
Okay.
No drinks past that point.
That's the only concern I have. I think it's a good project, and I wish you well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I'll have to try this restaurant once or twice, So the gentleman sitting next to you,
Yes,
is this your son?
it's my son, yes.
Okay, so you need to speak up because you'll be the next person running this place. So what is your thoughts on this?
I think it's a great idea from my father. He's full of brilliant ideas, and whatever he says, I know in the end it will always come through and work out for the best.
So I saw him putting together all the shelves when they did the market. So you're going to be doing all the work in this new place? I just want to...
That's the idea. That's the idea, yeah.
Okay.
Him, his two sisters.
No, yeah.
You're right. Lily's at the restaurant now, which allows us to be here.
No, I love family restaurants. I mean, you were very successful. You always have great product, and I don't know where else I'd go on a Friday night.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
So at this point, I'll open it up to the board on any motions on the...
I'll make a motion to close. Make a motion to, this is a public hearing, so make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, do I have any motions on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the alteration of the premises for Al Fresco Restaurante and Market Al Fresco, 1768 Main Street.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say by saying aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well. Congratulations.
Well, thank you for your time.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Next item on our agenda is residents. Do we have any residents that would like to be heard? Seeing no one stepping up to the microphone. All right, we're going to go to new business. New business, we have Main Street, Pleasant Street, East Street, North Street intersection improvement project. I'll just give you names for the public record and accompany you with.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Kevin Hardeman, Public Works Director, here with Andrew Stack, Town Engineer, Amy Archer, and Walter Heller from Park Corp. We're in front of the board tonight to talk about the proposed improvements to the town center. Kind of brief history on the project. So back in 2020, at special town meeting, there was funding appropriated for an engineering redesign of the town center. Park Corp was engaged to do that design. They came up with a couple options, brought that for discussion to the board at that time, back in September of 2020. There was a signalized intersection as well as a roundabout option. Got feedback from the board, started working through the process to get the project on the tip. At that time, MassDOT identified that the North and East Street intersection, which was not under the scope of this project, was an HSIP cluster and therefore should be included in the project scope. So we kind of had to take a step back, include that intersection in the scope, and because it's an HSIP cluster, we went through the roadway safety audit process to identify the hazards and then come up with solutions to address those. Once we completed the roadway safety audit, we submitted the paperwork, the project need form to MassDOT. That was approximately January of 2022 at that time. MassDOT issued their project eligibility notification to us in February. Then we got a couple proposals from different consultants to complete the work, the design work. And then we started down the road, excuse me, of the design. We've engaged with MassDOT throughout the process. We've gotten the project on the tip for 2027, but because so much time has gone past since we were in front of the board, we wanted to come back in front of the board, get the board's input on design options, and seek direction as to, what we should be looking for and looking to implement for these two intersections. So with that, I'll turn it over to Amy and Walter, and they'll kind of go through some of the options and then see what questions the board has. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll go ahead and see if I can share here. All right, looks like that populated, so everybody should see. As Kevin was mentioning, we started with a feasibility study at the intersection of Main and Pleasant. We came up with two primary alternatives, keeping signalization, but expanding some of the lane configuration, particularly coming up from Pleasant with the co-location of the schools. Once we had that underway, we also looked at a roundabout configuration.
Oh, I'm sorry, just move the microphones a little bit closer, I guess. Thank you.
Is that better?
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So the initial alternative at the main signal at Main and Pleasant was maintaining signalization, but modifying the lane configuration to better accommodate the movements. And one of the key concerns is the existing spur of East Street that comes out to Main Street west of the primary signalized intersection, causing quite a bit of confusion about who has the right-of-way, and there were quite a bit of incidents there. So we were removing that segment of East Street, pulling all of that east traffic into the primary signalized intersection. We looked at doing that with a channelized right turn, or a slip lane, if you will, which is shown on the top of the intersection there, and then, as I mentioned, adding the left turn coming up from Pleasant. The second alternative was a roundabout, which I'll show in just a minute. As Kevin mentioned, once MassDOT got involved, they asked us to add the North Street to East Street intersection. Similar as we went through the RSA process, the two elements that rose to the top for consideration were signalization of that intersection or development of a mini roundabout, which would fit within the footprint of that intersection pretty well and would have a more passable and mountable center for emergency vehicles or larger vehicles as needed. In coming back to the board, we wanted to look at the system a little bit more holistically. Since the two intersections are so close, we've advanced it to some modeling in a program called VSIM. So what we're showing here is two options, and then there is potential to combine the different options, but we wanted to work through what's on the screen currently is signalization of both intersections. If we signalize the two, they would become coordinated. They are so close, we would do the timing so that they pair with each other. Frequently, a smaller intersection close to this larger intersection, it would either have the same exact timing or it would be some interval of it. So we may have a shorter cycle length with the smaller intersection, but it would be some percentage or some interval of the larger one. And then I'm going to switch quickly to the second rendering. We took the roundabout concept that we had at the Main and Pleasant intersection, which is a single lane at some points of the intersection, but a dual lane at other points. We've added the pedestrian movements, which weren't shown previously. In the original concept, we were just mimicking sidewalk where it existed today. As we went through coordination with MassDOT, they asked us to make sure that we're looking at connectivity for pedestrians to and from all legs where possible, and unless there was some drastic right-of-way impact that would critically prevent that, they wanted us to make sure we were adding that. So we took a closer look at where the pedestrians would be moving. I will also point out that if we switch to the roundabout, the bike lanes that were previously installed on Main Street, the bicyclists would have two options. They could exit the street and they would have to walk their bike through the intersection on the sidewalk like a pedestrian, or they could stay in the lane. So we do have two options there. You can see at the intersection of North and East, as I mentioned, it's a mini roundabout as opposed to a larger roundabout. That is typically handled with striping. So you are still preventing the left turn movements. You're making vehicles circumnavigate the intersection, but larger vehicles do have an opportunity to drive straight across if they truly needed to, if they were in a hurry, your emergency fleet, whether it's fire or safety. And then trucks at the main intersection would have a mountable apron. We did do some analysis, so we have a couple videos. If you are okay with me sharing for just a few minutes, we'll take you through the interaction of the intersections. First looking at the signal and the AM and then PM peak, and then I'll switch over to the roundabouts. So this is the AM peak with signalization at both intersections. As we went through the analysis, we also output the delays and the queues, which you probably commonly see from traffic. For the signalization in the AM peak, both intersections would operate very high. We had A and B movements on almost every approach. I can pull up the table in a moment, but you can see here it moves pretty well. The main delay at the intersection of Main and Pleasant is to allow the left turns. So we do have those advanced left turn movements before the through movements flow. This is nearing the end of its run. I'll just let it go. So the PM peak does have higher traffic, particularly in the westbound direction. You'll see that in the next video. I'll go ahead and let that one time itself out. All right, give me just a moment, I'll pull up the next one. So this is if we kept both signals, this is your PM peak. This also operates high level of service. I think we hit a level of service B on each of these intersections with the signal. And then just to point out, we had worked previously on the relocation of the fire station from Pleasant Street over to Main. So when we did that, we did interconnect. Actually, I think it was through radio transmission, not a direct interconnect line, but the signal at the fire station currently gets preemption at the signal here. So with signalization, we could maintain that preemption. if there was a conversion to a roundabout, the emergency vehicles may just have to flip their sirens back on to alert people that they're coming and make sure that anyone that is currently in front of them on their approach gets out of the way. All right, so I'll go ahead and shut that one down. And then we'll run the 2 roundabouts. So if both intersections were converted to roundabouts, the larger roundabout at the main intersection and the mini roundabout at north and east, we didn't have any issues in the morning either. These both operate at high level of service. And we'll pull up the table in a moment just to give you the exact level of service ranges. But this flows smoothly. As I mentioned, in the primary roundabout, we have 2 lanes entering off of each approach on Main, and then that circumnavigates as 2 lanes around the north and southern portion, 1 lane around the east and west portion where it's not necessary. It's the end of that video, and then I'll pull up the last one. So from the modeling that we've done so far, and I'll just point out that MassDOT is also going to review these, this is the only period that had some backup, and what we've seen with the model is this is due to the interaction of the 2. So your westbound movement along East Street as it approaches Pleasant is backing up at certain times in this peak hour. It's not the full peak hour, but we wanted to show you the most conservative few minutes within that peak. And when the Main and Pleasant intersection does back up towards the mini roundabout, it then kind of exacerbates the backup and the queue at the mini roundabout. Once the main roundabout clears, then the mini roundabout clears. So there's a little bit of delay between when the main roundabout clears and when the mini roundabout clears. But if you watch the full hour of the modeling, you'll see that there are a couple minutes where it backs up and then it clears out for a few minutes and then it backs up for a few minutes. So there's no excessive delay, and it doesn't, it wouldn't cause gridlock, if you will. It's not a situation where it continues to get worse and worse and worse. It does have the opportunity to clear, but there is just enough volume in that PM peak that the proximity of the 2 intersections can cause some interference between the 2. So I'll close out of that and just bring up the level of service tables. Switch back over to that. So first we were looking at the signalization. This is at your Main and Pleasant intersection. Your first section of columns is your AM, your second section of columns is your PM peak. So if we just get to the bottom, the crux of it, you're at a level of service B in both the AM and the PM peak. If we signalize the main intersection, the intersection of north and east, a level of service A in the AM, B in the PM with signalization. When we switch to the roundabout, the main roundabout functions fairly well. It hardly has backup or delay. Level of service A overall in the AM, B in the PM. And then you'll see this last mini roundabout. It lists as an F. I will also point out, I don't know if you're aware, but since it's a roundabout, an unsignalized intersection has a lower threshold for what it considers F. So 56 seconds is just over the limit. 55 seconds would have not been an F. 56 is. If it was a signalized intersection, I believe 56 seconds is a D, a level of service D. So just to give you some comparison. So people approaching the mini roundabout at certain times of that PM peak might have about a minute of delay. We do want to point out the differential in the benefits. So as MassDOT starts to review both options at both intersections, they'll not only consider the level of service as we're showing here, but they'll also consider the safety. Roundabouts do have a distinct safety improvement factor. So that's something that we're not sure if the town weighs heavily as you're looking at your central area, your downtown, your business district. There are typically safer movements for your bikes and peds. You're also, as I mentioned, eliminating the left turn conflicts, so there's a reduction in crashes. So as we run these through MassDOT, They tend to look somewhat favorably on roundabouts as long as the level of service and the right-of-way impacts aren't extreme. I think that's all we had to.
Mention the right-of-way, show the right-of-way.
I could bring up the two again. So he's just saying, as far as right-of-way goes, I'll zoom in a little, see if I can zoom in a little bit, just so it's more clear. They do both have some right-of-way impacts, but in different areas. So with the signalized intersection, since we're trying to add that northbound left turn for ease of the bus movements in particular, and then the co-located school, there's a likelihood that we're going to have a sliver of an impact. We're trying to keep it as small as possible, but a partial impact on this parcel in the southeast quadrant. We just miss the corner of the gas station parcel as we have this laid out now. That's assuming MassDOT keeps the one lane, slip lane. Sometimes if this was a heavy enough movement, they might consider a double lane. I don't think we're going to have to get to that. That may have pushed us a little bit further east, but I don't think it's something that we're going to get up against. With the roundabout, we don't need to add the second lane on Pleasant. There's enough capacity at the roundabout for us to keep a single lane approach on the northbound. So we actually don't have any impacts to the southeast parcel, but we just clipped the corner of the gas station. So it's kind of a trade-off. I think the town, when you're going to get into the MassDOT process, they will fund the construction on the tip, but the town is responsible for the right-of-way acquisition. I think under either alternative, you're going to have some, but it's a matter of which parcel and how much do we end up needing. To add sidewalk on areas that don't currently exist, we would likely have right-of-way impacts at the north and east intersection under both alternatives, because we're trying to add pedestrian movements that don't exist today. I think the last element that's worth pointing out, now that I've zoomed in a little bit, since we are removing the leg of East Street that approaches Main, we do still need to service those driveways that exist on the north side of that spur leg of East Street. So those are being consolidated into a single access point on Main, just west of the Main and Pleasant intersection. So as it works right now, our understanding is there's counterclockwise circulation around the back of the church, so that would still operate and then come out to this point. And then the apartment building with the multiple residential, that would also come out this way. We've got stop control, so they stop before people entering the church are making their turn in their movement, and then they would also come out to this point. So it's a consolidated access point, a little bit of access management for those parcels on the north side. Did I miss anything?
No, good job.
I think that's everything we
And that's
had.
for both scenarios, the driveways.
Yes, yep, I can switch back to the other one. And zoom out a little bit.
All right, at this time, I'll open it up to the board. Mr. Ryder, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Walter, Amy, thank you very much. I'm a big advocate of the roundabout in both locations. I think, yes, the level of service is reduced. However, there is a safety impact that, 56 seconds is worth the safety. I personally know 3 individuals that have been in an accident at the end of East and North Street. And it's either taking a left turn from east onto north or trying to cross east heading over to Main through North Street. I think both designs work. I think in the off-peak times, traffic moves freely. You're not relying on signalization. Traffic will continue to move slowly. When there's no queuing at North Street, your East Street traffic is going to continue to flow down and continue to flow onto Route 38. Similarly, when you're, I probably drive this route 25 times a week, and that left turn taking on to North Street is, I go, okay, is it going to be today? Because you don't know that, you got an 18-wheeler coming at you, and everyone understands when you enter into a roundabout, you're yielding. And your speed is reduced. The way it's designed is to slow you down as you approach. The reason you have those angles. So the couple questions I have for the north and east, obviously the center is a mountable. Would you do some sort of, whether it be pavers or not just markings? I think I would, just my experience, whether it be in the islands, breaking each lane, that also, you showed in your last picture here, you could adjust your walkways, gives a little safe haven for individuals that want to cross. So you can traverse one lane, stop, and then traverse over. Gives you, so you don't have to cross 2 lanes at once, so you can get in that break. I would probably look at potential of any, maybe a rapid flash beacon on Main Street with the higher flows of traffic there. And maybe based on the counts, you'd have to look at the counts on east that you would look at doing in that direction. Have you looked at that?
So that's one of the things that we commonly go through with MassDOT. The intersection of Main and Pleasant, if we convert it to the roundabout, does have 2 approaches where pedestrians would cross 2 lanes at once. They may actually require the pedestrian hybrid beacon as opposed to the RFB, so you would still have some partial signalization in there, but just for those movements to accommodate your pedestrians as they're crossing. It's very likely they're going to ask us to consider those. We haven't gotten into the warrants for that yet, but that would be the next step if we were advancing one of the roundabout options.
Okay. Again, I think, even in the roundabout, you look at the potential taking on that back corner. Have you looked at shifting those 2 lanes, a few feet to the north? You get a little more deflection on traffic, but I think you'd have to look at if you have that distance with with setting in sidewalk on that side as well.
Yeah, we actually laid out the concept working off of GIS for the survey, and then we got the more formal survey after Main Street was updated. So if this was the one to advance, we could certainly look at, are there minor modifications we can make just to pull away from those right-of-way lines? As I mentioned, the bigger takes would be at the intersection of north and east. I don't think we'd be completely out of those parcels, but we would certainly try to minimize them to the extent possible.
Right, but the takings would really be for the pedestrian, for the sidewalks.
Right.
But that also goes to, the connectivity from the North Street School area down to the center of town, then ultimately connect up Main to the library and back around.
Right. And potentially the future bike path.
Bike path. I would highly recommend walking the bikes through. I'm not a big advocate of bicycles and vehicles together, but I understand the concept that MassDOT has. I think, again, I think it's a great design. I think it will move traffic smoother. Right-hand turns only is much safer. Great job. Looking forward to moving this forward. Thank you. Actually, to Mr. Hardeman, one question. 27?
Yes.
What are your thoughts on this actually getting funded? Yes? Well, I understand with the,
I'm not going to speak to political dispositions. I can't speak to that. We are on for 2027.
Okay.
I can't speak to what's going to happen with federal funding moving forward.
Okay, great. Thank you very much and great job. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Mr. Russo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you guys very, very much for your presentation. I too, I like, especially in the roundabout version where, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm simply just basing it on the sketches here, but how we open up Route 38 to multiple lanes further than where we are today. I think partially for me personally, I think that's one of the reasons why towns like Wilmington and Billerica do good in their centers of town, right? Because they have multiple lanes on their main roadways. I think that's one of the things that I saw here personally that I like. did we take any look at, especially Pleasant Street, coming from the south side, going north, around sort of the school day time? Because the traffic on Pleasant Street itself, you know, especially at just before 2 o'clock when high school gets out, and then of course, you know, all the buses coming out around 2:30, 3 o'clock. I mean, that tends to, especially for residents that live sort of on those side streets, you know, where people are trying to circumvent that intersection by going down those south streets to go down 38 towards Lowell. Was there any sort of research done on that as well?
So we did do traffic counts during the AM peak, 7 to 9.
Okay.
We did midday, I believe we captured noon to 2. I think we were trying to get the high school. And then in the afternoon, we started a little early, and we picked up a 3 to 6.
Okay.
I know the PM commute was the worst. We could go back and we'll take a specific look at the school hour from that approach. But I believe the other movements weren't as heavy.
Okay.
So there wasn't an issue with that movement coming out with the signal. It just pulls a little more time from the cycle. And with the roundabout, if it doesn't have the opposition from the other movements, it could.
Yeah, I guess I mean, it's funny, I remember just being out holding signs at this intersection during the campaign election season, and the left-hand turn when you're coming from East Street to turn left, so to go towards Wilmington on 38, when you have the road that goes just before, like in between Para and the Mobile, and how much traffic backs up on East Street there when that car is turned up, because they can't, because there's one lane in Pleasant and they're all just going straight, and then finally the light turns red and they can't turn left, right? So I do think the roundabout removes that issue. But I know, just based on information in our packet, the fire department also was just had some concern about making sure they could get, you know, their trucks through, et cetera. You did mention something about the smaller roundabout, and I might have missed it because I was looking at the packet as you were talking to.
Yeah, so the circumference of the larger roundabout is large enough that they can make comfortable movements. Okay. With the smaller one, it is tighter, so we would expect them to drive over, whether it's striped or if we do like a stamped pavement or stamped concrete, the largest vehicles would need to drive across it.
Okay, okay. And was there ever any, in your sort of research here, was it one scenario or the other, or was there ever any blending of these two?
So the modeling we haven't combined. All of the intersections are operating high enough under both scenarios that we think you can combine them, but that would be our next step. If you want us to look at truly a mixed bag, we could run that.
Okay, okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, I'm all set.
Thank you. Mr. Mackey?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Cleared up a lot of my questions, especially that video model, because I was trying to envision some of those maneuvers going on, so that was great. I am not an expert in this, and I tend to defer to the experts on something like this. And my gut feeling here is that the rotaries look good, but I just have this gut feeling on concern, but I will defer to the data on that. I can overcome that feeling and defer to the data. I would like to see what it looks like with the mixes, if that's possible, because I do know that we need to get some relief for that northeast intersection. That's a problem area. When did you pull the traffic data that you're using? Because it started in 2020, I believe, right?
Yes, so we did have old data and we worked a bit with you guys through COVID. The latest is from 2023. So it's after MassDOT considered the effect of COVID to have lifted. I do know our volumes are slightly lighter than they were pre-COVID, but MassDOT hasn't seen much change over the last year and a half, with a lot of the work from home policies being extended and seeming like they're going to continue to extend. There is generally slightly less traffic than there was pure pre-COVID.
Gotcha. Yeah, to Mr. Russo's point, I wanted to make sure that we were capturing that traffic with the sense of the centering, opening of the center school. So that was a very important piece. That's really all the questions I have for you all through to the town manager. Kind of a spin on Mr. Ryder's question. Is the TIP considered discretionary funding? Do you know?
I'm a little less pessimistic than our DPW director. I do think that 2027 TIP is 2 years away, and the NIMCOG tip, you know, is very predictable. It's not as political as the MAPC tip. So I think that money will be there. You know,
Oh, so this is a NIMCOG tip?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Good to know. Thank you. And then on the takings that would need to happen under both situations, Mr. Hardiman, do we know what those costs might be to the town?
We don't, we haven't done any assessments yet. In my experience, the assessment and the review assessment cost more than the easements themselves.
Fair enough. And then is there any other funding that would be required from the town to move this forward in whichever direction we go?
We'd use Chapter 90 funding as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Mr. Holland?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. It was very impressive. I travel that North Street, East Street every day, and you get to that intersection, you go, am I going or am I going to get killed? I like the roundabout. I think traffic flows better than having the signals, because I think one of my colleagues stated that the light at Pleasant just backs up on East Street, and nobody can get out of North Street to get across, and nobody stops, and then it just becomes a show that nobody wants to see. But I do appreciate the plan, and if we get the money, that's the thing. This is the major thing, is how we're going to pay for it. And I hope the tip comes through. But can we get an estimate on what other costs, your eminent domain or your easements, signaling, if that's not going to be paid through the tips, how much Chapter 90 funds would we have to use?
So, let me grab this. So to progress to 100% design, the total cost for the roundabout is about $470,000 for the design to get us to 100%. It's hard to say what the easement cost will be with the design at the conceptual level. I'd say roughly we might be looking at $25,000 to $30,000 for easements to get us, what we need, and that's a ballpark figure. MassDOT does have non-participating agreements that are required. If there are any costs overrun on the project, up to 10%, the town is responsible for that. So we put money aside in Chapter 90 to cover those costs. In my experience, I've done and worked with the town engineer on the South and Salem intersection, the Shawsheen East and Dascom intersection, as well as the River Road Andover Street intersection, and we have not incurred non-participating costs on either. All three of those projects, we've avoided that. So it's probably unlikely that we'll have additional unforeseen costs. Really, the engineers do a great job with their designs, making sure that they've covered everything and that there's no unforeseen costs.
All right, thank you for that. I have no further questions, and thank you for the presentation.
All right, my turn. Roundabouts. I love them and hate them. I've seen so many of them in so many different communities where they work and where they don't work. Some communities love them, some just don't. My concern, I think traffic-wise, the roundabout probably works better. My real concern is pedestrian crossings. And I'm looking at what you have up here, and kids are going to be kids. It's just that you can try to send them up the street a little way to cross. Kids are going to come down Pleasant Street and be in Town Hall, and they're going to run across that rotary and into the rotary and try to cross the street. I'd like to see some illustration of how we're going to do some pedestrian crossings out there. The flashing beacons, I would love to see those out there. We had a fatality a couple of years ago, right? And I'd like to see if this can extend just a little bit further down to where Dewey Street is, to come to the end of where Town Hall ends. because there is another crosswalk right there, and there's a lot of housing that was just built there, and some senior housing that they tend to walk and go across to the commons. So, you know, I'd like to see, maybe we can get the kids to cut down Dewey and cross that way, and, you know, if they're coming from the high school, to go down Dewey Street, go across by Town Hall and get across that way, rather than walking to the Rotary. I'm just trying to think of a way where, you know, we don't have some kid running across the Rotary and cutting across, and then somebody getting hit. That's my real concern. And, you know, we're going to have, we do have some handicapped people that live in the area, and making sure they can get across in a safe way. I do see a couple of islands here, you know, the spots where they can get across, but I'd like to see a better plan with the you know, how they're going to get across, and what we're going to have out there for potential on sidewalk improvements. I know there's going to be some right-of-way takings, but from what I can see from the right-of-way takings, it doesn't looks like you're taking any of the actual usable land that the businesses are using. It looks more like the grass strips that are going around. So I don't think, you know, even if you're taking something, they're not currently using it right now. But I would like to see some pedestrian you know, access down there as well. We're big into trying to make some more sidewalks in this community. We have ball fields down there. One of the priorities is try to get North Street, having sidewalks going the length of North Street. There's sidewalks on one side of that street, so getting the kids over, running over there, and then they still get a crossover to the other side. I'd like to see how, you know, this works. You know, we did get a couple of correspondence. I don't know if the board was able to look, but we got a couple of emails late this afternoon from the police and fire talking about it, but I would like to have continued conversations with them, because the police and fire department is right there. I'd like to get their input on our safety personnel about what could happen out there, and have them take a look at it as well. It seemed my quick glance at what they wrote us seems that they were in favor of the rotaries as well. But like I said, I just always have concerns of, you know, people running across to that Rotary. I've seen these places built, and then years later, what they end up doing is they put in a walkway through the Rotary, and then they cut across Revere and other places where I've seen them go in. And, you know, there's a high school there, not too far, similar to what we have, and the kids run across the Rotary. And so they did make some changes eventually, but I just want to make sure if we're gonna build something, this is probably going to be there for a while, and we want to make it as safe as possible. One of my other concerns I have is truck traffic. I understand this will be able to get people around there, but one of the things that we've been trying to implement is make sure that we have Market Basket and some industrial up at the end of East Street. Market Basket's been a great partner. They've been telling their truck drivers to go to 93 and Dascom to come off that way, but there's a lot of independent truck drivers that tend not to listen. And when they're driving up East Street, if they're coming around here, and it makes it that much easier for them to go. We get a lot of complaints from the residents from the empty trucks going there early in the morning. I don't know how this would affect making it easier for trucks to go around there. And from what I could see, the Rotary going around, I'm just trying to, the turning radius for them to, like if they came down Main Street heading, and they went around the Rotary heading up East Street, you know, just cutting off all that traffic, you know, it's just if we make it easier for trucks to be using this way, I could see them blocking traffic of people coming down Main Street heading, you know, northbound toward Lowell. And I just want to see the analysis of looking at those. You did, what were the peak hours that you did?
We captured traffic during 3 peaks. We did the morning peak, 7 to 9.
Yep.
We did a midday. We were trying to capture the school. I think it was from 12 to 2. I don't have that in front of me at the moment. And then for the PM commuter, we started early to also capture the elementary, and that went from 3 to 6. So those were the periods that we captured for traffic, and then the analysis pulls the peak hour within that window of traffic count data.
Okay. Like I said, my key factors are, you know, making it safe. I just want to make sure that yes, this will probably make, vehicle travel safer, but I'm worried about, because we have a middle school, a grade, high school up the street, we have seniors living around the area, we have a soccer field, it leads to our baseball fields. Kids tend to be out in the summertime. You see a lot of kids running across the street here. I just want to make sure that if there's any way, that we can take a look at, if this was implemented, what's the best way to get the kids to cross the street, and what's the, what kind of equipment we can put down there to make sure we're sending them to the right direction. And, you can send them there, but are they actually going to use it? That's the key. And we got police and fire right across the street. That's beneficial, but I just want to make sure that, like you said, we're making it as safe as possible. I do like the rotary at the North and East Street one, because I think that will work a little bit better, moving the traffic around there. I just also have a couple of concerns of, if there's an accident, one or the other, what does that do? If you have a rotary, does it, currently, if you can go up, and there's constant accidents at that North and East Street. So a lot of times, if that happens, they'll go up and then they'll come down the other side of North Street, or they can cut over to be able to get up East Street. They can go up to the next block, go over Chandler and move the traffic along. But like I said, if there's a way to extend this down, to take a look at all our pedestrian access that goes down to Dewey, to see if there's any way we can add something out there. I don't know what MassDOT will come up with. I know they've been adding some islands as it is. They're talking about putting something up on the other end of town by Market Basket to add a strip up there. The last thing I want to do is narrow the roadways. So we're trying to move traffic along, but they tend to put those in, and then, then we get a lot of complaints about the islands because people hit them. But I'd like to see any kind of concept, and like I said, I'd like to talk to our police and fire to get a little bit more input on it before we make our final decision. But if you can take a look at that and maybe get us some update on that, that would be appreciated.
So,
Kevin, do you have anything?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
So it sounds like there's some consensus on the board, and what the DPW needs is some direction on one decision or the other. All those issues you mentioned can be handled throughout the remainder of the design process.
Mm-hmm.
So if the will of the board is to move ahead with the rotary, it'd be beneficial for us with the TIP program to move ahead tonight. Because if we delay it and risk delaying the design process, that does impact our ability to be funded with TIP.
Mr. Chair, through you, I have a question through you to Mr. Curran. What do we need? I guess, obviously, Chapter 90 funding is the discretion of you and the DPW director. My opinion, I think this is something, what I've heard from the board tonight, that the concept is there. Everyone likes the concept. I think, as Mr. Kratman stated, a lot of those future concerns and items are going to be picked up in, our next phase of this. And, as you stated, NIMCOG is pretty predictable in terms of their funding timelines. And I'd rather not miss that. So if we have the funds, I think it's beneficial for us to continue to move this forward, and then being able to bring in, as Mr. Kratman stated, bringing in the fire chief, bringing in the police chief at our next meeting once we get, a little bit more data as you move forward. Mr. Hardiman, you may be able to get us an idea, pin down that taking value and survey value and all those other items. But I'd like to see it continue to progress so we don't miss an opportunity to get that TIP funding.
I would defer to Kevin, but what level of design is it at right now?
It's merely conceptual.
Okay, so it's not even a level of design. Maybe there's some point that you come in before the board when you get some level of design, not 100%, but you come in and have a public process where the board can weigh in and things can still be modified in the plan. but there's an opportunity for police, fire, and everyone else to participate, because all of these concerns that the chair has brought up are valid concerns, but I think we're not quite there in the design process, and maybe we could take these things, bring it to a certain level of design. I don't know what that is, but and then come back to the board.
I agree. I mean, do you think 50% would be that next 60%, that next step where you want to start to really incorporate Mr. Kratman's questions and some of the other board questions on movements?
So as this evolves through the MassDOT process, their first submission is a pre-25%, and then they would decide if it's a complex enough project where they would come to the public, possibly through you or at a separate meeting, for what they call a public informational meeting. That would precede the 25%. After the 25%, we definitely have to have a design public hearing, so anyone from the community that has an interest would weigh in at that point. I think to come back to the board specifically, after the 25% might be appropriate, MassDOT would then have us go to a 75%, which is their like draft final design. So I think you want to be before that.
What do you think, through you, Mr. Chair, what do you, to Mr. Hardiman, what do you think funding-wise to get us to that 25%? You threw a number of 490 roughly to get to 100%. What do you think? You mean from the board tonight to kind of get to that?
So, yeah, we're already funded for the 25%.
Okay.
It's right, there's an additional about 260,000 to get us to the 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I misunderstood that, so thank you for clarification.
I also have one other question on this. I see where, with the Rotary part, that there's a shared driveway there. Will that be a care and maintenance of that? Is that going to be under the town, or where would that? Because it looks like it's a little private road where it's going in there, and I can see some concerns with where that may, like who's doing the snow and ice removal, who's keeping that clear during wintertime. We've got a couple of homes there, and the last thing I want to do is landlock somebody in there and have them, would that be, is that something that goes over to the residents, or would it be something that we'd maintain?
So currently, we maintain East Street in front of their property.
Yep.
We treat it no differently.
Okay.
We would maintain that shared driveway in front of their property. They'd be responsible for their driveway on their property, but we would maintain what's within the right of way. I think that's only fair, seeing as we're modifying the configuration of that, for the benefit of the general public. We don't want to put any burden on the residents.
Oh, like I said, I could see the residents having some concern on that, and then where the bank is, that's currently vacant, that is a grandfathered drive-through that's in there, and it looks like it continues to have the two entrance and exits out of there. So I'd like to see a commercial business hopefully be going in there, but I just want to make sure that that stays open as well.
I get a question through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Carden. I guess what do you need from the board tonight to continue?
Just a motion to move one of these options forward.
Okay. Then I guess I'll make a motion to move if we calling this option B, the roundabout? Is that option B? I'll make a motion to move option B to the 25% base.
I'll second that motion.
So just, Mr. Chair, through you, just because there's a motion and a second, just in terms of further discussion. So I think a couple things that I've heard from us collectively that have been raised is your concerns about pedestrian crosswalks and just understanding, some of the pieces that could be worked into this, and maybe we can still get to that 25% phase and still have that done, potentially. A mix of the two scenarios that I think myself and Mr. Mackey brought up. And then we talked about costs, and then safety vehicles and potentially larger trucks, that are coming down from the industrial part of East Street so can we still, move one of these forward with still having the answers to those things over the next couple meetings, I guess? I mean, that's sort of where my head's at right now.
I understand the question. So the only thing I think that concerns me is you said a mix of the two plans?
Well, I just think that there's the larger rotary scenario on Main and Pleasant. There's the smaller rotary on North and East. And my question when we went around was, have we looked at potentially a mixing of these two scenarios?
So you can't mix them. They have to be, it's either two rotaries or two signalized intersections. Is that what you're asking?
Well, that's not what I heard when I asked the question, so.
That's what I was told. Maybe I was wrong. Yeah.
And I apologize, because since we've talked about this, we've had them perform more analysis and modeling. What we're really trying to avoid is heading down in two different directions.
Sure.
And spending money on a design that ultimately we're just going to shelf and not use. So that's why we're kind of looking for that direction of, which option do we want to use so that we can engage the design team to move forward and address all of the concerns that come up regarding pedestrians and truck traffic and safety and things like that in that design.
Fair enough. Okay.
If it's helpful just to add, MassDOT is also reviewing these two. They are looking at all the traffic analysis we've done so far. They will provide some direction what their preference is. So I don't know if you're comfortable deferring to them or if you want to make a decision if there's one that you feel more strongly over than the other. As I said, just from our experience with, they call it an ICE, an intersection control evaluation, the roundabouts do become more heavily favored because of their safety element.
In terms of MassDOT, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
And that weighs in through you, Mr. Chair, and that weighs in for TIP funding. So whether the project will be classified to meet their standards to get funded that under the grant. Right?
I know we got a motion in a second on the floor, but one of the concerns I'd like to just bring up is the time frame. I mean, if we were to look at this and have conversations with our police and fire and bring this back at a next meeting or something like that and get some of those answers, is that going to screw up the time frame of the application with MCOG or 25? I mean, a couple of weeks, is that going to make a big difference?
A couple of weeks won't. A month and a half, 2 months would.
Okay.
That would start to impact our schedule because we have to do the right-of-way process regardless of the design we go through, which is probably one of the most difficult processes. We've got to notify the residents who we're seeking easements from. We have to log every conversation we have with them. We have to reach out at certain frequencies and intervals throughout that process. We have to have appraisals done. We have to have verifications of those appraisers. So we hire a licensed appraiser. Then we have to hire a licensed appraiser to check that licensed appraiser's work. So it's just a lengthy process. So.
Well, that's one of my concerns. Like, we put this on our agenda and like the residents, it was as a conversation, and I don't know if residents would be interested in coming down here and having a discussion. So I don't know if we need to make a decision tonight is my perspective. It just, I'd like to at least hear from, if there's somebody who wants to come in. We're talking about it tonight. We may have people come forward and have some questions, and we're really not giving much time to the public for them to come in and come on and give. We did a presentation and we're making a vote on the same night. I'd like to, but like I said, I'll listen to the board's decisions. I personally would like to talk to police and fire. I'd like to look at the analysis. I'd like to kind of look out there, take this plan, walk down the street, see where that rotary is, where do people cross that roadway, get a view of it myself, and just get that feeling. There's one thing to look at a plan, there's another thing to be out there and say, okay, how close is this rotary to that rotary, and how is that going to impact, and those type of things, concerns I have.
That's fair. I guess through you, Mr. Chair, if we can reschedule this for next, bring this back up at the next meeting, have the police chief and fire chief available to meet, and with the anticipation that we'll be voting on, the board will be voting on a direction. And we can put that on the agenda, that the board will be voting on a direction, and that gives the opportunity if residents want to come in and voice their concerns. That being said, having dealt with these, I know the TIP program and with Mass DOT, having done one of these during COVID, and I will say I was 100% against a rotary, and I wanted a T intersection with a traffic light. And I've been turned. So and I was concerned about safety in the movements, and I've found work in the town of Hudson, and it's the center of town, and Route 62, Route 85, it's a junction, and I've seen 45-foot tractor trailers pull through and with no issues, and pedestrian safety has been amazing. So it's become more walkable and much safer. So I'm willing to withdraw the motion, and we take it up at the next meeting.
Okay.
I just would like to thank you for that. I appreciate your consideration very much.
Like I said, if that's okay with the board, we'll move it, we'll schedule it for our next meeting. We'll have people come in, we'll talk with, like I said, I know we got correspondence from police and fire, but I really didn't have time to go through it. It looks like they're in favor of it, but I'd like to have a conversation with, especially with the fire trucks coming out of there, ambulances going through there, school department. There may be some other people that I may want to talk to with the, the school bus drivers going through, and how this is going to impact things, and have a conversation with the other people that are in that area and get any concerns. There may be something that we're not thinking about, and a couple of weeks aren't going to kill us. And then the residents are aware, and they can come forward and they can speak on that. Okay? All right. Well, at that, do we have a motion to move it to the next meeting?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to revisit this at the next meeting, and have Mr. Curran bring in the police chief and fire chief.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Yeah. So I got a motion.
From the amendment?
Yep.
So our next meeting is for town meeting, so our next regularly
Our
scheduled.
next regularly scheduled meeting at Town Hall.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
So
Thank
I
you
got
for
a
clarification.
motion from Mr. Ryder, second by Mr. Russo. All those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you very much. It was very helpful. Great presentation.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we have approval of a donation to the Veterans Department. Mr. Curran, do you want to speak on that? Do you have a?
Yeah, this is, hold on one second.
I know there was
Yeah.
correspondence with Ms. Downey.
So we received a $200 donation from Armando Leon from Billerica. And, it just requires the board to accept it. So I'd just like to maybe ask that the board also send a letter of thanks to Mr. Leon for his generous donation to the Veterans Department.
Okay. Do you have any motions on this matter?
I'll make a motion to accept the donation, $200 donation from Armando Leon, and have Mr. Curran office send a thank you.
Second, with gratitude.
We got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well, and passes. Board and committee discussion. I know we had committee meetings talking about our appointments, but I had a discussion with our town clerk and office staff about some of the boards and committees. Some of the committees that we have, there's seems to be, we're not sure how active some of them are. We're trying to figure out if, in the ones that are active, we're having difficulty with people either showing up to the meetings or minutes of meetings or doing the public records, open meeting law things. So I want to leave it out to the board, but it seems like some of the boards are active, some of them aren't. And I don't know if it's because we have the same people that have been on them for years and just say, yes, they're going to be on them and they're not attending, or my thought process was that we ask everyone who's on the boards to once again fill out an application, so we know their willingness, who's going to be on here. The board gets, our board gets to review the applications in a meeting, and we'll take a look at, and if people are active and they're staying active on the meetings, then we reappoint them. But maybe if we post out that we have openings on all boards, and if there's, people don't renew, then we can maybe get some new people that may be interested. And at least they'll fill out applications, and if people don't return, then we can fill new ones and maybe find out what the willingness is of people to serve on these boards, and are they something that the community still wants. But I'll leave it out to the board to comments or thoughts on it.
Mr. Chairman, I would say that I wouldn't put out all vacancies, just the ones that are going to be expired. If somebody's term is up June 30th, do you want it or you don't?
Yeah.
You know, because I'm looking through the select board appointments here. Conservation always meets, yeah, and their minutes are posted. Community preservation, we're going to every quarter. I mean, I think we have a meeting June 5th instead of, we used to do it once a year. But the community preservation would be various committees or appointees from the planning board, et cetera. Board of registrars, I would have no idea. I mean, anyway, I wouldn't know what to do.
Well, they're appointed by the, that wouldn't even be, they're appointed by us, but they're selected by the committees, like the Tewksbury Democratic Committee, Tewksbury Republican Committee. They send a representative to those.
Okay.
And so those come in, and then we approve them when they come in front of us. So I know they meet because they have met before, but talking with the town clerk, there's a number of people like where she sends out correspondence to people. You haven't completed the open meeting law. You haven't completed this. And each year she's chasing them to do it. And even if they are meeting, they're not meeting the criteria of what they're supposed to be doing. I mean, you really shouldn't be attending a meeting if you're not doing what the clerk's asking you to fill out the paperwork as is. So, you know, I'd like to make sure that we're supporting the town clerk in what she's sending out. If people are supposed to fill out certain applications and certain documents, they should do so. And if so, are all the minutes being, I asked her to give me a breakdown if she's missing minutes from people, if there's missing different things of documentation of people that aren't serving so. And then I was going to have a conversation with her and the town clerk to sit down and try to figure out how we can support her going forward. But if we posted things out and said, you know, here's some people that aren't abiding by what the clerk is asking her to do, and then we have some new people, then it's like, you know, either you follow the correct procedures, that's the concern. I'm just making sure, if there's no minutes, how do we know if they're meeting? So.
Yeah, well, I think that needs a little more investigating.
Yeah, and we will. But like I said, if we post out some applications on some of these things that seem to be, I agree with you, not just on the ones that are expiring. That was my.
Well, and vacancies.
Yeah, and vacancies. You know, put them out there, see who wants to, doing it, but each year we renew these. And sending an email sometimes saying, do you want to stay on the board? And somebody sends back an email, yeah, and then doesn't attend. That's not really servicing what we need and having these committees meeting. And I know they're having some problems with quorums on some committees, and so like I said, I'd like to at least put out applications so that residents know, you know, you get appointed each year, but these committees are open to everyone in the community. So if someone is interested in being on the board, please apply. I'd like to be a little bit proactive to get some new people and see if they want to take part in that.
So, Mr. Chair, also,
Yeah.
so where it doesn't have anything in the current agenda or current minutes, so for example, the Mass Cultural Council, the Open Space and Recreation Plan Committee, and then on the second page, I guess the Trust Fund Commission, And, well, the DEI committee, there is something there, but 2023 was the last time it looks like they met, or sometime a couple of years ago. So if there's nothing in those columns, or in this case, 2 years ago, are we to assume that they're not meeting?
That's the question.
Okay.
That's the question. That's why I'm bringing it to the board.
Okay.
Is that I'd like to do a little bit more, post out some positions, see who's available, do some investigation with the town clerk, and maybe contact the chair or vice chair of each committee, find out why minutes are missing for amounts of time, and people that aren't filling out the open meeting laws certificate for her to have on file. If they're not willing to do so, then, we shouldn't have the town clerk chasing people when she's sending stuff and asking for minutes. And some of these, as you can see, seem to be quite a while ago, and find out what's going on.
Mr. Chair, I think we could, it's either the clerk's office or maybe Paula could reach out to each chair of each board.
Yep.
And kind of get an update, kind of give an update of where you are. We know their committees, and then let's advertise those, and also, look to see on current committee members, are they, have they met all the required criteria? Have they filled out their open meeting law? Have they filled out their ethics paperwork? And if they haven't, an email is sent to them. And if they do not respond and comply, then we remove them from the committee. Ultimately, that should be the process. Let's get an update, find out who is in compliance with the guidelines from the clerk's office, open meeting law, and ethics. And if those, a simple email gone out, hey, you have this requirement to be on this committee, is this going to be completed? And if they don't respond at that point, then that becomes another vacancy on that, and we advertise all of those current vacant positions.
The reason I wanted to bring this forward is the clerk's been trying to reach out to people, and unfortunately getting a great response to some people, and we're the ones that appoint. So if people aren't responding to her and then we go ahead and appoint them, it's showing that we're not supporting the clerk in a motion. So I would like to see, like I said, I just want to make sure that if people are meeting, they're doing the open meeting law and they're filling out minutes, and they have some sort of agenda of what's going on. So if residents are interested in what's going on in these committees, they can at least see what's happening.
So personally, I think Mr. Ryder and Mr. Russo started to make some good points.
Yep.
Again, I agree that we need to be more surgical. I don't think that a blanket solution, one size fits all, is going to work here. They generally don't. So I would say in the upcoming terms, we continue with the process we have, and we take a step back and we look at this and we go, okay, let's create a policy, so it's not just somebody making a decision, a policy on compliance, and then it's documented, and then we don't have to have this discussion again. And we have policies and bylaws in place where if people are not attending meetings, they can be removed. So we need to look at what we have on the books, so we're not duplicating effort. We need to look at what policy solutions we have, and we have some tools as well. We can reduce the size of some of these committees. So some of these very large committees, we can take a step back and surgically look at, do we need to rescope this? And some of these committees, again, I'm on the Economic Development Committee with Mr. Ryder. This committee has been struggling for years on what its direction is. And that has been a question to the select board that we're trying to, the two select board reps have been trying to work with Mr. Curran, and we're trying to figure out what that needs to be. So some of these committees that we may not be members on, or may not have delegates on, may be in similar situations. So I think not making a knee-jerk change right now, while it is a problem and needs to be addressed, let's not just throw something in place. Let's be a little more precise and intentional with the choices we make, and have a nice laid-out plan on what we're going to do, why we're going to do it, how we're going to accomplish it, how we can leverage the chairs of the committees, how we can leverage existing policies, et cetera.
Well, I mean, the reason for having this is not to make a decision either way. I just want to have an open conversation of knowing that each year we come to this and then we get applications and we reappoint people, but it continues.
I'm happy to put together a quick highlight of at least my thoughts for discussion, and then we can roll from there if that's acceptable.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll have continued, I'll work with the town manager and the town clerk to get more information. We'll try to have I'd like to have a consensus from the board that we give the clerk the ability to reach out to the chair of each committee, find out, when you're meeting, what's the story with the minutes, and get some information, and then when we get back, we'll have that information to work with as well. So, maybe they just don't know they're supposed to turn them in. Somebody's keeping them, who knows,
So for creating more work for our already overburdened clerk, what's the intended outcome of that? If it's not part of a bigger, more deliberate initiative, what's the intent of asking her to reach out like that?
To find out if they're meeting, how do we know if people, like you just mentioned, we have policies in place if you missed 3 meetings. Well, how do we know if you missed 3 meetings if we haven't had minutes in a year and a half? So how do we enforce that if somebody, or how do we know that? So I think by talking to the chair of each committee, they could give us an update. Having a simple email or conversation to the chair of each committee can give us an update of what's going on. And maybe they are meeting and they're just turning in minutes. I have no idea. But I'd like to at least know what's going on with each committee.
So, Mr. Chairman, we can beef up this report and try to get, as you had mentioned, between the clerk's office and my office, try to get fill in as many gaps as possible and help you to determine which committees are still active. I mean, we're going to continue to run into some non-response in some of these committees. That's just the way it is. But we'll do the best to give you more information to help you try to make some of these committees a little more efficient.
Mr. Chair, if I can maybe just figure out the path forward here. So, and I'm willing to make a motion for this in terms of trying to move this forward. If we work through the town clerk, to Paula, whomever, to reach out to all the chairs, I think, Mr. Mackey, to your point, it's just going to provide data points, which is something I know that you're very, interested in and going to help make decisions here. So I think by having those data points, and we can work through each chair of each of these committees to say, yes, we're active, here's our meeting schedule, here's when we've met, here's who we have currently and are vacant, and maybe even here's who's attending and who's not attending. I mean, that would certainly be helpful information too, to determine the go-forward path. But then equally, I believe, Mr. Mackey, to your point about maybe having a more policy discussion at maybe our next meeting, which is in a month, roughly, give or take, after town meeting, so that we can have a more broader discussion on not only the surgical aspect of this, but then how do we move it forward as a whole. I'd be on board with that, just especially coming from the new guy at the table here. So that would be my sort of path forward, and I'm willing to make a motion to do that.
Yeah, and like I said, it's part of the conversation is, maybe talking to the chair. The chair says, I'm having a problem getting a quorum. I'm having a problem getting things. And maybe there's 3 or 4 people that want to continue with the thing, but they're having a problem having a quorum. Sure. Do we make the committee a little bit smaller so they can have a quorum? Do we open it up to the public so that maybe there are people that are interested and think that there's no openings because we're not posting them? So we have till June 30th, and now's the time to have the conversation. So if we're gonna, if some committees aren't gonna meet and they're not, and they decide there's no need for it anymore, we'll find that out. If some people are saying we're having a hard time getting a quorum, maybe if we post some postings out, we'll have time to get applications. Maybe we get some new members to help. And maybe people will want to take part in that. But it's just giving information to the public, knowing that there are committees and boards that are out there. Maybe there are people out there that are interested in joining these committees, and maybe somebody's willing to help them who's do minutes and, help getting everything, and so that it makes the town clerk's job a little bit easier. That's the whole purpose. But, okay, so
I'll make a motion formally to allow the town clerk's office to put more data around each of these committees for our next meeting, as well as Mr. Mackey potentially bringing some discussion points forward to have a higher level conversation about policy and just overall direction forward for our subcommittees. her appointed positions.
Second that.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you. Okay, hold on a second. So, I know we have an addition to our agenda, but I don't have it on this piece of paper, but it's the, second, it is response to the state auditor's letter. Mr. Cameron, you want to?
Mr. Chairman, I know you all received the letter, and
Yeah.
the letter basically affirms that Tewksbury is a community like the other 4 or 5 communities that the auditor's office has opined on already, that meets the standard of an unfunded mandate. And the auditor's office did make a specific request in the letter. At the end of the letter, she requests a waiver from the town of Tewksbury of a 60-day timeline under the local mandate law regarding the financial effect determination. So, in other words, the auditor's office needs more time to determine what the financial effect of the unfunded mandate would be. So that's what they're requesting of the town.
Okay. All right, we can open up to the board. Any questions or thoughts on this?
So, Mr. Curran, through Mr. Chair, Mr. Curran, so do you need a vote from the board to authorize that 60-day?
I think you would.
Do you want to respond?
Okay.
They want a response
I just
to it.
want to clarify
Yeah.
what the board needed to do.
Yeah.
and
I thought we took that earlier, but if we need to take another vote to clarify.
Per this letter, they're asking us to send a response to approve the 60 days.
I would send them a letter saying that the board voted to allow you to, if that's the will of the board.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion, but
Mr. Mackey?
Thank you.
Others.
So I personally am not interested in giving this extension. The state auditor made this determination that this is an unfunded mandate. This board took action based on that determination. Okay, she made a very loud statement with her determination. We heard it. It gave us a potential path to victory to move this forward, which, as many of you know, I'm not in favor of the law. It's a bad law, but it's a law, unfortunately. This gave us an out, which I was very excited about. I had hoped we would be proceeding with compliance on our side to minimize the financial risk. However, that's not currently the case. This is her response, which is a boilerplate response, almost identical to the other letter she sent out. We sent her a letter asking for specific questions. We asked if there were clarification around if our funding from NIMCOG impacted our determination. That was not addressed in this letter. We were also requested the underlying financials, which she's now requesting additional time for. If she doesn't feel comfortable, her office does not feel comfortable that they can back this up, then they've put not only Tewksbury, but the other communities that have used this as their shield to go to court at risk. Speaking, when we had town council in here, I asked the very specific question of how do we have a chance at victory through this? And the response was, we need the auditor's response and we need the financial analysis. That's what we take to court. That's what we use to attempt to get a stay. That's how we get a shield. So the fact that we got a boilerplate response almost 2 months later that doesn't answer our questions, and I think personally puts us at further risk because we're not having what was supposed to be delivered per the guidelines around the unfunded mandate or local mandate law. I think that office needs to step up and deliver. A lot of people, a lot of towns put significant weight behind this determination. So I'm not in favor of granting this waiver. I think that it continues to open us up to significant financial risk, and without this analysis, we can't effectively pursue a legal stay or file suit in a meaningful way.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, through
Mr.
you.
Russo?
I mean, I don't disagree with what Mr. Mackey is saying, but I do believe that we at least need to give her the opportunity to go back to her with those concerns to say, and I apologize, I didn't have the original letter that was sent to her. It was before my time on the board, but with this determination, I agree it's boilerplate, but then let's go back and say, you didn't answer the questions that we asked. And for you to now, seek out an additional timeline, it puts us at a more significant risk. However, we still are looking for A, B, and C. So I think by taking sort of more of that firm stance, again, it might come back as another boilerplate. I don't know. But I think we would need to do it justice to give her the opportunity to at least go back and say, well, you didn't answer our questions.
I'm more than happy to do that. Personally, I wouldn't want to grant the stay until we at least got some further engagement beyond the boilerplate, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Holland?
I'm good.
Mr. Ryder?
I agree with, Mr. Mackey, it wasn't answered, but I think we've gone this far, and honestly, I don't think this just pushes us out there. The lawsuit has not been, it's been heard. It has not, there's been no rulings on it. I think we send back the letter granting the waiver, but also making sure that we put those points in further that, we requested these bullet points. Is this affected under the NIMCOG funding? In 60 days is not, we expect that we expect a formal letter back answering those questions as well as the determination at that point. I think we've gone this far. I don't think, honestly, my personal opinion, I don't think anything's going to happen. We're not going to be any worse off in 60 days from now. I don't think we're going to be, any suits are going to be filed in any time soon. This is, it's already been voted down, it's not going back, so I think this is just some more ammunition for the town. I don't think it's going to hurt us by giving us a waiver.
So point of clarification, this is the 60 days is coming up. This is not, she's requesting an additional 60 days. This is an open-ended, and if anyone came in front of us and asked for a waiver open-ended, I don't believe any of us would be ever in favor of that. You got to have a response, hey, we need another 3 months, 6 months, whatever it may be, but an open-ended, we just want you to waive this, and we're not giving you anything in response, and for that doesn't work for me. I mean, there's been lots of harsh words towards the state, and I don't know where that gumption went. if we're gonna swing a hammer at the state, let's keep swinging.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mackey. My feeling on this is that we should, send a letter in once again, with giving them 60 days. Looking at this unfunded mandate, I'm sure it would take some time to look at all the cost analysis of what's going to be done with this project. I don't understand how the state can mandate us to do something when there's no real answer from the state telling us how we're paying for this mitigation. There's limited to what the developer has to pay for. The state is not going to give 177 communities the money to do all the mitigation if these were to be built in the next couple of years. There isn't enough funding to do it all. And where the funding is going to come from, and I think it's going to come back to the cities and towns. So having the auditor look at those costs and giving us an answer, I'm willing to wait 60 days to get something.
Point of clarification, it's not 60 days she's requesting. That is not what that letter says.
Yeah. All right, at this time, I'm going to take any motions on this.
I don't think it hurts us. I make a motion to have Mr. Curran send the letter on behalf of the select board.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Point of information. So the letter would be what? The letter would be that the board is granting the waiver?
Granting a waiver, and then also highlight those points that we requested to be
in the original letter?
Yes.
And then is there any limit on when the waiver, or is it open-ended?
I don't think, at this point, I don't think it's, in our best interest to say if you don't give us something in 30 days. I think where, as Mr. Kratman stated, there's a heavy lift of what the financial impact studies have to be done for the 100 towns. So I think that, I mean, my understanding, that's the process that they're working through now. So can we request a response within 30 days or 60 days? I'm open to what the board thinks is a appropriate timeline to have some sort of response or communications back from their office.
I wouldn't personally give up our leverage of giving that waiver until we get that response. That's just me, because that is the only leverage we have. Once we waive that, unless we put a very tight timeline on it, we have no more leverage. We are giving up our right that the law protects us. The local mandate law says that they have to give us this response in 60 days. That is what the law says. So if we are going to waive that, what are we getting in return? What protections do we have? How do we move this ball forward other than just saying, yep, we're good, we waived it? Asking the questions is great, but if it took 2 months for us to get a boilerplate response, why should we feel any different that we're going to get meaningful answers to our questions when we have no leverage and no legal protection?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Town Manager, when are we out of compliance?
June 14th.
June 14th, okay.
Yes.
Point of clarification through you, Mr. Chair, to the town manager. Could you check with, since we're requesting this determination, does that put us in any position with the state that we're arguing compliance to
I don't believe it does. I mean, statutorily, we won't be in compliance as of that date because we won't have the zoning bylaw in place. I don't think anything else really matters in the eyes of the law.
Save for a stay from the Superior Court per the guidance of Town Council, which is why I was very precise in my request of the wording of our letter to the state auditor.
But I mean, even in the letters to the communities that are mentioned here, Rentham, Middleborough, Methuen, there was no determination of any type of stay. I mean, it was a letter.
No, that comes from the court.
Right. There was just a letter. Sorry, there was a letter that was giving them the ability to file in court.
Correct. And when we had the discussion with Town Council and this board had a discussion to have the town manager send this determination letter, I was very precise and the board supported the verbiage that I requested be added, and that was not met. Because if we are going to fight this, right, we've decided to fight. If we're going to fight, let's make sure we have the ability to win and not just roll over to another state agency that is blowing us out the door. If the real issue here is the state isn't listening to us, why would we then roll over to another state agency? That's what gets me.
So, Mr. Chair, through you, so Mr. Mackey, so what are you proposing then?
I'm proposing that we send a response letter and we don't give any waiver until we get a response. And answers to our questions would be a great start. A timeline for when we may get this analysis would be great. I don't think we'll get it due to the amount of lift, but if we were to get it before we were out of compliance, that would make me feel a lot better because then we have something to go to court with and potentially get a stay, which is our shield. That prevents the state.
So your suggestion then is what Mr. Ryder said minus the waiver part? Because he wants to also get clarification similar to what you're raising on the various points that were in the original letter amongst a few other things. I think that's reasonable. I mean, given kind of where we're at in the sense of that it is kind of I don't want to say an ultimatum, but it is another agency saying, grant us this and we'll give you the information you're seeking. But that's not what the original intention of our letter was, to my understanding.
So I would make a motion to have the town manager send a letter asking for answers to our initial questions and clarification on when we can expect this. Post that response, we can revisit giving a waiver.
I would second that.
Some point of information, I think if you read the letter, the request for the 60 days is because of our original request.
Yep.
So the 60 days is pretty much expired.
I feel that they shouldn't have
think that's what
waited
precipitated-
this long to send us a boilerplate response, if that's the case.
Well, what they basically did is send us a letter that they're asking for more time. So that's really what the.
That's the way I, through you, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
that's the way I interpreted it, that they're requesting an additional 60 days.
Well, I don't know if it's additional 60.
They're requesting,
more
they're
time.
expecting more time from the town's 60-day requirement, is what we put in our original letter.
No,
the 60 days.
the law.
The law,
Local
so
mandate
60
law.
days, but they're requesting a waiver to that timeline.
So we're going to let the state not follow their own laws?
Well, I mean, ultimately, we're doing that with that's the MBTA zoning.
No, we're choosing not to follow that law.
Well,
Now we're going to let
but
the state.
we're also sitting here choosing whether the state can tell us what we can and can't do at the local level, and the local level has been told, you mean, so we could go around in a circle here. We could go around in a circle and agree to disagree.
Mr. Chairman, we have a motion and a second on the floor.
So I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on this? All right. All right, so I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed. Well, it's opposed 3-2. Thank you. All right, do I have any other motions to be on the floor?
I make the motion that we grant the waiver. I don't think at this point we've already gone down this requesting determination. I think we need that determination, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months from now. It's something that's going to help us, whether we're in compliance June 14th or not. We're going to continue to fight. And I think this is another tool in the toolbox to help us fight that battle.
All right, do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
I got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed. So the motion passes 3-2. Thank you. All right, Mr. Town Manager, you're up next.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I won't talk about the first topic since we just spent the last half hour talking about that. Zach. East Point Energy Battery Grid Storage, this is just an update. Obviously, it's not something that's being permitted through the town, but obviously the town has a very much a vested interest in this project. So just to update the board and the public, the Hillman Energy Center LLC, which is the organization that has basically been created for this battery energy facility, has filed a petition with the siting board, Energy Facility Siting Board, also known as the EFSB. That was done on April 1st, and it granted individual comprehensive exemptions from the town of Tewksbury's zoning. And that's to construct a 125 megawatt battery energy storage system and the related infrastructure, including a new electric substation. And that's at 7375 Hillman Street. And I'm not going to read all the other legalese in this, but the other things that I want to update the board on. So the process at the state level allows people to participate in that process and under two different statuses. The one that we want to choose is we want to intervene as a party. That gives us more rights in the process, allows us to file exhibits and things like that. So that's what I think that we will be looking to do. There has been no hearing or anything set up to date. The only thing that has really happened is that they have filed their petition and their proposal with the EFSB, and we will watch to see when that hearing is actually going to be set up. But in the interim, I did have a meeting with an attorney who specializes in this type of proposal. His name is Jeffrey Bernstein, and he represented the town of Medway, who recently adopted one of these proposals. or had one approved in their community through the same process, through going through the state board. And their site was actually 250 megawatts, so it was 2 times the size of this one. So he's very well versed in this, so I thought the best thing for the town to do would be to engage special counsel and Jeffrey Bernstein and have him come to the board at the next meeting, next regular meeting, to discuss our strategy through this permit process. And that would probably need to be an executive session because we're going to discuss strategy that could possibly involve litigation. So that's what I'm recommending to the board. So I would just look for some direction tonight from the board to move in that direction if that's what the board wants to do. And I will set that up for the next meeting.
I'll open it up to the board. Any questions on that?
Mr. Chair, to Town Manager, do we have an idea of what we're anticipating for a retainer? Do we know, should we anticipate $10,000, $15,000 to start, or?
So I would say, to start, it would probably be something along those lines. I'm not too concerned about that yet because I don't have an engagement with him yet. But I would suggest as part of our process is that we seek to recover all of our consultant fees through this permit process, which has been done by other communities.
Okay.
And then just to follow up, well, I'd like to get an answer, but to follow up, the town did put out an information page on the website to we put all the documents out that they've submitted. We put out some facts, frequently asked question sheets, and different things to try to help people with information. As you probably know, there's a very active group that is close to the site, and they've been requesting information. So we've done our best to provide them whatever they've asked for, and we'll continue to do that. I think that's important, and during this process, we'll be representing the town's interests, and that's what our goal is to make sure that the town's interests are protected as much as possible. So that's why I think it's a good idea to have counsel that's versed in this type of thing to help us to make sure that we have the resources we need to protect the town's interests.
So if we do not apply to be part of this, then we really have no say as part of it. So we're reaching out to the state to try to get some leverage so that we at least can put some input in this, and having this legal counsel will also help us with that determination.
Right, it's better to participate in the process or try to control the outcome rather than stand by and let it be passive.
The state mandate, okay, all right. Do I have any other questions on that? Do you need a motion to approve that?
Not unless it's a negative one.
Okay.
Okay. Then the next, we'll go through the rest of the report. We're still struggling with the downtown message board. This report I wrote before vacation, and it's still not fixed. We're still trying to get that part to coincide with. So I will try to get you another update on that. But if anyone has been in,
it seems like, who are we dealing with that's taking this long to get us parts from?
well, there was a couple of things. One, there was a part that was ordered that we had to wait for, and now there's some kind of conflict with the part not working correctly when they installed it. So we're trying to rectify that. But if any of you have been in, I know some of you have been in town hall today or yesterday, we have a much more annoying thing going on that Vinny's been tied up with, which is the fire alarm that's been beeping for 3 days and driving everybody insane. So we're trying to. So I haven't bothered Vinny with that because I want that beeping to stop. So
if we can get a time frame on that, because one of the things if we can also do a couple of other things, if we can reach out to the library because they have a message board, and see if they can make sure they put out about the town meeting, and it's much in the same way when the election, we had like message boards that we used to put out, the sandwich boards we'd put out and say, this is what's going on. So if that's not working, if we can throw out something out there, if we have a electronic sign over the DPW, just to remind people that maybe they can throw it on the island out there.
Yeah, I can do that.
Reminding people of the town meeting
I'll
while
do
that's
that.
not working.
I'll take care of that tomorrow.
Yep, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Treehouse parking lot, so if like me, if you probably drive by there every day, there's been quite a bit of progress, have been moving fairly quickly. I'm trying to get a hold of the state permit, the actual permit itself, but what I understand is that they do have all their permits in place. I did put on my report the proposed crosswalk that was being designed, but I want to get the actual permit to see if it's if it was approved exactly as it was submitted, just for your edification and for the town's edification. Also, that's supposed to be done fairly soon, in the next couple of weeks, and they're working on signage as well. So that's ongoing. And Tewksbury State Hospital water connection. There was an issue. They ran into an old children's hospital that was buried in the path of the plan. However, it wasn't as big of a problem as that they feared, and so they're moving ahead with that. And I did send you plans for that as well. I know that one of you had asked for, the plans to see what the size of the lines were and things like that. So I believe I sent that out. Middlesex Street annual meeting. I went to that a week and a half ago, and that was I was appointed to the board of directors. I've been on the board before, so I just moved my chair moved over a little bit. So I went to that. It was interesting. The focus was, the keynote speaker was climate technology, and sort of that theme of around economic development right now, of what things are moving, which is battery storage, data storage, cold storage, technology. These are the things that are moving as opposed to office park. So that was an interesting meeting. I did run into someone there that actually I know, and she is a consultant for data storage companies. So I'm setting up a meeting with her and the community development team so that we can talk about possibilities in Tewksbury, and hopefully she will bring her clients this way when they're looking for a place to locate. So that was helpful, and I did the NEMRAC. I had a meeting with the chiefs on April 17th. There's several positions that are open, and so they're interviewing, and it's a industry-wide problem that everyone's having trouble holding on to dispatches. So we're on the edge with that a little bit right now, but we're trying to keep ahead of it. So, and that's my update. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep, good.
through you to the town, the Treehouse parking lot, has the issue been resolved with them using the other parking lot?
I haven't received any complaints from any of the two parties that had previously complained. I actually did reach out to them about a month ago, and updated them on some of the things that I've been trying to get done with this. And so I haven't received, to answer your question, I haven't received any complaints.
All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions, Town Manager?
Just one, again, this just could be because I'm new here. With regards to the Treehouse parking lot, I know that there was traffic studies done initially when Treehouse was going in a couple of years back. Was there anything updated when this parking lot came into play where we're going to have this crosswalk crossing, a fairly busy intersection where you already have a very congested area? Again, just new guy on the board, just trying to make sure I understand kind of what this, how this all plays out.
So what is the question exactly?
So was there additional traffic studies completed when they took over the old Funland area to tear that all down and to make it a parking lot, such that we're going to have families crossing Route 38?
So I don't know if there was an actual traffic traffic study done, but they did have to go through the state permit process, which requires them to be reviewed by the state. So the plan was reviewed and approved by the state. There's a lot of issues. I mean, I kind of walked in here in the middle of this too, so I wasn't here at the beginning, but there's some issues with that road that goes down the side. It's a difficult site because the crosswalk where it currently isn't a good location, so it was moved over. But there were limitations because I think that road is a private road, and so that created some limitations. So it's been a difficult process, and I know that the planning board ultimately permitted that parking lot, but only allowed them to stripe 98 spaces initially, which is what they would be doing now.
Yep.
And then they wanted to see what happened, and they were going to wait 12 months, and then if things were okay, they would stripe the rest of the lot, which I believe would bring it up to 138 spaces.
Okay, I appreciate that answer. I mean, Mr. Chair, just, you brought up the issues and concerns about crosswalks through rotaries tonight, and here we are talking about, again, a fairly congested area already in town, and now we're going to be stopping traffic to allow families to cross, because let's be honest, anyone who's ever been to Treehouse, it is, a lot of families are there, and now they're parking across the street to now cross a busy intersection. So again, I appreciate the clarification, and I can appreciate that it's been a difficult process all throughout, so thank you.
Mr. Russo, to update you, we have talked about this many times. I know you weren't on the board. But one of the concerns that came up is that when the planning board issued the permits, some of the studies they had to do went into effect when they were fully operational.
Yeah.
They've never been fully operational. That's what the problem is. So to do the traffic studies that they're supposed to fill out, it's when they're fully operational. Maybe when this parking lot is open, they'll open the rest of it, but it's to have the building in the back that's open, the golf course, it's only open temporarily. I don't know if this place will ever be open by 100%, because I'm not sure what the time frame is on that. But we'd have to defer to the planning board to give us those answers. Hopefully they will ask some questions when this parking lot is opened. The Mass DOT will look at the curb cut, to look at the intersection, but I've got the same concerns that you have. One of the issues, I want to see the actual permit, and I asked the town manager to share it with the rest of our board, is one of the things is when they come out of the parking lot, the cars are supposed to take a right toward Wilmington. Anybody that's going northbound is just going to drive down the street, turn around in Market Basket, and then drive back down. How that's going to help with traffic congestion, I have no idea, but I can't imagine anybody like going all around if they're going back toward the Lowell area. They're not going to go out Shawsheen to 93 to go out. They're just going to turn around in a parking lot and come back the other way. But, it was a safety concern. People crossing that roadway is definitely a concern. And then, in coming across the other streets. So I'm hoping that once we get a copy of the permit, maybe that'll give us some answers, and then maybe once we have that, we can ask the planning board to reach out to Mass DOT about, safety, if they can request additional safety matters. So we'll figure it out.
Thank you for clarifying.
All right, Mr. Manager, you have anything else?
I do not.
Invoice, town council invoice?
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is the town council invoice from March 16th through March 31st in the amount of $4,547.50 to Feely and Brown.
Motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Right, I got a motion by Mr. Mackey, second by Mr. Holland. All those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. It's approved. All right, that brings us to minutes. Mr. Holland, would you like to start us off? I'm sorry, minutes, what I'm saying. I'm going to the thing. I'm going to board reports. I skipped ahead. I apologize. Minutes, Mr. Russo.
As far as I'm aware, we don't have any minutes.
Yeah.
Do you have anything from Paula?
No.
Okay, so we have no minutes to approve? Now we're going to board member reports. Mr. Holland, that's where I was going.
I'm good.
Okay. Mr. Mackey?
Thank you. There was a Economic Development Committee that did not have a quorum, so that meeting did not occur, and it got rescheduled. Additionally, there is a 250th anniversary of the Civil War reenactment on Sunday. There will be a walk. There's information on the town website. That's being hosted by the Town Historical Society. I would encourage residents to come out and give that a look. Thank you.
You don't want to mention the person who's going to be riding on the roadway? Okay. Mr. Russo?
The facility school study committee has not met, and we will no longer meet until after town meeting and when the warrant article hopefully gets approved, and then we'll go through the RFP process and go from there. So we're on a little bit of a standstill.
All set, Mr. Chair.
All right. LRTA met. We had a meeting talking about the number, how the bus service is improving. Tewksbury is either the second or third busiest bus route of the LRTA. So we changed the route around to go the whole length of 38. With that, we're picking up a lot more passengers, and hopefully that's getting some vehicles off the roadway, and it's bringing a lot of people to work. So it's being successful, and I think a lot of it has to do that we are getting free ridership until the end of October. But people are using it, and hopefully it'll continue. That's all I have. Anybody else have a
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
We got a motion to adjourn by Mr. Mackey, second by Mr. Holland. All those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well.